So let's now move to our second speaker for today, Dr. Sanaa, Dr. Moez Sanaa. Dr. Sanaa is currently the head of the Standards and Scientific Advice of Food and Nutrition Unit of the World Health Organization. He has a genuinely inspiring career path with previous experience in various organizations like EFSA, ANSES, and FDA, and he has also been a professor in the National Veterinary School of Alfort in France. So, Dr. Sanaa, thank you very much for being here with us today, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for this invitation. Nice introduction. So I will give you a quick presentation about what I'm doing today, and I will explain my journey, how I arrived to WHO. So first, sorry for this, to disrupt you a little bit, because we are to alert you about the situation of the present food production and consumption. Trends are driving the collapse of the ecosystem on which humanity depends. This is the bad news. But the good news is that there is possibility today with a more evidence-based approach and with some political wills. I think there's a solution that we need to find, and thanks to research center as here, you will contribute to this problem to solve this kind of problem. So some researchers said we are in this situation where we have a lot of pressure on the earth, and they call this era Anthropocene era. What we mean by that is that we are in a situation where the influence of human being on the planet and on the ecosystem is becoming significant at the histories of the earth. So there is something to be done. And when we look at the food system, what we mean by food system is not only to buy food, to make choices on what we are eating, but it's about what we are producing, what we can produce, how we harvest, how we distribute the food, how we process the food to make it affordable, accessible, and attractive. So this is what we mean by food system, and it's a very complex system. And as you can see, some of the estimations show that food systems are responsible for a third of global anthropogenic emission of gas. You can say that the major contributors are animal production system. So through that, we can see that the food system contribute to the climate change in one hand, but it became today one of the biggest victims of the climate change. And when you see what happened now and the impacts that are estimated by different international reports, showing that we have a lot of disruption of the supply, is about the, and you see the climate change and the political situation today with the conflicts. So there is high negative impact of the availability of food, so a problem of food security, but as well a problem of food safety, because with the climate change we are seeing rising of many problems like aflatoxin, how to store the cereals, how to increase of some foodborne diseases. So at WHO, within the Food Summit with the UN, other UN organizations, we create a new narrative to put the food system in the center and to explain that the food system has different impacts of our health as a human, as well for the environmental health and for animal well-being as well. And here what you can see, we can say that we have a broken food system. We can acknowledge that, and you see there is different aspects, and that will lead, I will not go in details for all that, but we define 5 major pathways that impact the health of the population. Unhealthy diets and food insecurity are the first one. Zoonotic pathogens and antimicrobial resistance, this is one of the biggest issues. the way of raising animals, the misuse of antimicrobial at the production system led to high spread of antimicrobial resistance. The third pathway is about unsafe and adulterated foods. The fourth is about environmental contamination and degradation. And the fifth one is occupational hazard. When you are talking, for example, about pesticides, we can look at the use of pesticides. We can say it is safe. As part of my work in WHO, I have a panel called GMPR, Joint Meeting FAO-WHO, on residues of pesticides in food. And when you look from the food perspective, and if you are using good agricultural practices, we end up with low residues that are not harmful for the majority of the population. However, when you look at it from other perspective, how it is used, you can see occupational hazard. The workers, are they protected when they are spread the pesticides? You can see how we contribute to the pollution of the water, environment, the impact on biodiversity. So we need to look at it in more integrated way than we used to do. So that's we create this project, Food System for Health, not only the health of the consumer, as well the health of the environment and the health of the animals. And that's why we are talking more and more about One Health instead of talking about the health for human. So just some figure, because we always see that, 60 million cases, 1 out of 10 people experience a foodborne disease. And this situation is very variable, and you can look at the impact and the burden of foodborne diseases in different places of the world, and you can see the diversity between developed and less developed countries. And the World Bank estimates the foodborne illness costs almost 10 billion per year in low and middle income countries. In addition to that, when you look at the malnutrition, you see that the unhealthy diet and malnutrition in the top 10 risk factor for global disease burden. When you sum all together, we end up with 8 million deaths for NCDs, for high body mass index, for malnutrition. So you add all together, the burden of the food system is huge. I'm looking only from the health perspective, but if you add to the environment perspective and animal health and animal well-being perspective, it is huge than that. So in our work, we develop what we call the healthy diet, still working on the definition of healthy diet. There's one definition saying that healthy diet should promote optimal human growth and development and prevent malnutrition in all its forms. And another definition, working on another definition that not include only nutrition, but include as well the food safety, the contaminants, chemical contaminants, microbial contaminants as well. So, and the next step, how the healthy diet could support the sustainability. Because as you said, you can see it from both sides. Technology, okay, we are for innovation, but technology will not solve everything. We need the shift of the behavior from the consumer. So we need to explain what we mean by healthy diets. And I think we can converge the two approaches, how to shift the behavior of the consumer, and with innovation, together we can end up with more sustainable solutions. So we did a lot of work. I don't want to go through very scientific technical details, but just show some picture about what we mean by healthy diet and how we approach the healthy diet for the moment. It was done by nutrients, so micronutrients or nutrients. WHO is dealing with a huge number of guidelines, what we call them guidelines or guidance. It's a lot of systematic review. We are looking for all the scientific data available, and we end up with recommendation. How much sodium you can, daily sodium intake, which fats are healthy or less healthy. The trans fat was one of the big work done by WHO, and now we are going to the to ban the trans fat, industrial trans fat everywhere, and this were working very well. Sodium, still a lot of work to be done. Carbohydrates, sugar, added sugar, non-sugar sweetness. So we are looking them one by one. And this is not enough today. We finished the cycle looking at the micronutrients and nutrients to define what is needed, what is healthy, what are the upper levels. And we need to go for more integrated approach that look at the diet patterns in general. In addition to that, I'm not saying that we have full evidence for that, but there is a lot of alerts saying that the degree of processing could lead to health problem. But it's still on debate, and we need to work better on it to define. Sometimes it's not a matter of ultra-processed or low-processed, but what type of processing we are doing, and it needs more work on that. So if you look at the possible transformation, so as I said, we need substantial dietary shifts. I give you this example. So what is the main, well, more popular recommendation is to eat less food from animal origin, Shift from animal origin to plant origin. And you can see here the situation in North America. So you see the current situation, and you see the different food, limited intake, red meat, starchy vegetables, eggs, poultry, dairy foods, fish, vegetables, fruits, legumes, whole grains and nuts. And you see the situation here, and you have here the healthy boundary. And you see here the situation in North America, they're eating too much meat. So, and if you compare it with other situations, in other situations, here you have North America, and the other one you have Sub-Saharan Africa. You see completely different situation, and in South Asia, completely different situation. So if you are going to shift, it's not the same globally. So we need to understand the culture behind how we are using food and which diet we will develop. So we need to work on that and to define recommendations that will be adapted to different regions. And in addition to that, we are looking for novel foods, sources, and food production system. Yeah, for example, we did recently, and it will be published recently, about cell-based food. What is cell-based food? We don't use animal. We extract cells from animals, and we culture them. We use bioreactor, and we end up with something that we call meat. Should we call it meat or not? This is another debate about terminology, which terminology we can use. And we did a very interesting meeting with stakeholders to understand what is the situation, and we did an expert consultation to see if those foods are bringing food safety issue that we don't have with traditional foods. We can look at all the plant-based foods, like what you call the Impossible Burger, very famous in Singapore. Yeah, we did our meeting in Singapore because Singapore is one of the government who encourage the innovation, and the only place that you can eat cell-based meat is in Singapore today, the only restaurant, but you need to book much in, yeah, it's difficult to have a table there. And you have insect, you have soy milk, for example. So we have different possibilities. And what we are doing now here on this work is to, of course, the idea at the beginning was to have more sustainable processing and less impact on the environment. However, we need to look at those foods more carefully. What is the quality of the nutrients that we have? Are they bioavailable or not? With the processing, are we creating anti-nutrients? Is one of the issues with plant-based protein. What is the safety that we can have with insects and so on? So we need to have a good idea about the safety of the products. And the safety of the products is very important because when we have those products, we need to have international standards. And in WHO, we work a lot with Codex Alimentarius, and we need to reach some consensus on how to provide international standard for those foods. And the list is huge, and should we put high burden to have the authorization to put in the market those new products, what will be the trade-offs between be sure that the food is safe and not encourage the innovation? So, what is my job today is to bring different experts together and different initiatives together, and to help for the global shifts in food consumption and diet towards healthy and sustainable diets. So we would try to provide sustainable healthy diets recommendation through integrated risk-benefit assessment. So we are looking at different risks for human, environment, animals, and the benefits of any production system on the same population. And yeah, we can have different recommendations. It's not so easy because when you are looking at the recommendation, you say, eat less meat, but depending on your age, your need for part of the meat is not the same, but you are at the development stage of your life or at the end of your life. So it's not one single recommendation, but recommendations that will be adapted to the different stage of life, and recommendations that should be adapted to the possibility of production system in the different area of the world. So this approach, so we are looking within the One Health, as I put in the center, taking into account the population, human population, animal population, and the environment. So this is my main work today, looking at the safety of the food, the nutrition quality of the food, and provide recommendation on healthy diet, taking into account the sustainability aspects. Now, about my journey, yeah, I'm a veterinarian. I started my courses in 1980, so longer before you. And it was in Sidi Tabet in Tunisia. So when I finished my veterinary graduation, I enjoy this training, because when you are doing the training of veterinary medicine is important, like medicine in general. You need to make decisions at the end of the day. You have information. Some of the information are here, very clear. Other very uncertain information. And you need to combine them together and make a decision. The difference between animal health and human health, you need as well to take into account the economy. What is the value of the animal? You will not do the same thing, you will use different strategy depending on the value of the animal. So there's different components that need to be taken into account before taking decision. But very quickly, I decided not to work as a clinical veterinarian. I moved to France. I started working on infectious disease. I moved from individual medicine to population medicine. So I have more this perspective to be more useful for making public health decisions rather than doing decisions at individual level. And that's why, after that, I move from 100% biology to more biostatistics, modeling, how to model the spread of infectious diseases. So during COVID-19, for epidemiologists, it was very interesting periods, because now all of you know what is R naught, which is at this time is very difficult to explain to students. And now, thanks to this pandemic, now we understand how the spread of the diseases. So I work a lot on modeling of infectious disease, epidemiological study, and quickly, I moved from animal health to zoonotic health. Zoonoses are diseases that can be transmitted from animal to human, so common disease between human and animals. And as well, I worked for food safety issue. My thesis was about contamination of milk by Listeria monocytogenes, and I worked in France on raw milk cheeses, very famous raw milk cheeses. We did modeling to predict the number of Listeria and what will be the risk for the human. So after that, after I did almost 15 years at the university as a professor of epidemiology, biostatistics, and risk assessment, I moved to ANSES. ANSES is the food safety agency, not only food safety agency, but as well environment and occupational health agency. So what was my objective working in ANSES in how to translate science to action, to public action. We are a risk assessment body. What we mean by risk assessment, we are putting all the available data together and end up with recommendation to the risk manager. And you know, in Europe, there is a strict separation between risk management and risk assessment. Risk management about making decision, and risk assessment about informing the decision. So I work a lot on risk assessment. I was a part of EFSA panel. I learned a lot. I was in EFSA panel for almost 12 years with animal health, animal welfare, biohazards. We had a lot of meetings, very interesting meeting with different colleagues coming from different areas from Europe and outside Europe as well, because EFSA is open to experts from outside Europe. And I worked as well for FDA, working on new technology, whole genome sequencing, how we use those big data and make them helpful for decision making. And now I'm in WHO, where my main work is about food safety, nutrition, and we work mainly for the Codex Alimentarius, which is an organization created by WHO and FAO to provide and develop international standards. And international standards are, for the moment, mainly for food safety and trade, because they facilitate fair trade, because without international standard, you will have a problem for fair trade. But what we are looking today is how to bring sustainability to when it comes to establishment of international standards. So this is my journey. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready for any question. Happy to answer your question.
Thank you very much.